Welcome to Buckets from the Tommy John's home studios. This is your Best Bets episode for Friday, November 15th in the association. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Bryan Fonseca. You can find him on Twitter in the Action Network app at Bryan Fonseca NY. And he is the man that is most excited. No one is more excited for Paul versus Tyson than Bryan Fonseca. Also joining us is Jay Money. Jay Money is Money. You can catch Bryan breaking down the Paul Tyson fight. Is it? It's Logan, right? Or no, it's Jake.
No, it's Jake.
Logan's
is the
Logan's in WWE.
Yes, United
Jake.
States champion. Yes,
Yeah,
I think former.
Is he still? You don't think he's
no,
still?
former,
You don't think
former.
he's still got the belt?
LA Knight has the
LA
title
Knight's got
now.
the belt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. You can catch him on the Action Network pod. I got Jay Money with me. Jay Money is Money on YouTube and on Twitter. We will do best bets on this game, but we are going to talk real briefly about the NBA Cup, because Friday is another Cup night. I love Cup. I love the NBA Cup. I just think the games are fun. I think the courts are cool. I love the whole thing. I get into it. We had so many close games the other night, and it's not that we don't ever have close games. We had a close game on Thursday night, as the Mavericks didn't cover, and Derek Lively did not get anything, even though it was the easiest cap in the world for him to go over PR, and everything was great. And then he was in foul trouble the entire game, and I hate everything. But other than that, the Cup games are really close and a lot of fun. So, Jay, I want to ask you, when you're looking at the Cup and you're trying to cap these games the way that you do, how do you approach these NBA Cup games now that we're into our second year doing this?
Yeah, I remember talking about this the other day. The first game specifically, I treat it like any other game. I do the matchups up against the teams, look how they match up against each other, just because obviously I was on the Suns the first time around versus the Jazz. So when it starts to get deeper into the Cup, I think it matters more to the teams that are winning already, right? Like if you've already had a loss or definitely two losses, like it's pretty much over. Like you can try to care, you can try to play spoiler, all this, but you don't have that same motivation as the teams that are 2-0 or 3-0. So, some of the teams may have started out with a loss and it's still not over, but once it gets to the third and fourth game, that's when it's like, okay, these games probably, you could tell who it means more, like the Celtics. Even though there was no Trae Young over there, you can just kind of tell the Celtics, they don't really care about the Cup. Like they're not going to hang a banner for they're not the Lakers here. They're not hanging a banner for the in-season tournament for the NBA Cup if they win that championship. So they're focused on the actual finals, you know what I mean, the actual rings and things like that. So for now, even with second game, I'm still just kind of capping it just like it's a regular NBA. The games are a little bit different, but I'm capping them the same for the first and second game.
Yeah, I think there's probably like a little bit of differential in terms of how the teams are approaching it. I think some teams genuinely are kind of like, yeah. I think it's one of those where like if you win, you're like, hey, so like we could just go get the money. Like we could go get the money. Wouldn't that be good? Let's go to Vegas and get the money, right? So
let's do it.
Once you have that opportunity, I think that there's probably a good chance for you later on, because once those teams are out, they're gonna be like, yeah, it's it's whatever. Yeah. Bryan, some interesting stuff going on with the Cup odds. So I want to talk about Group B and Groups and in the East and Group C in the West. So Group B, Pistons get the win over the Heat in a nail biter. Bucks are plus 140, Pacers plus 180, Pistons plus 450, Heat plus 650, Raptors 50-1. In the standings, what are you laughing at?
No, I was just laughing at the 50-1 for the Raptors there.
Hey, I don't think Toronto's played a game. No, they did. They lost by 14. So yeah, they're probably not gonna win that Cup. So Bucks get the win with a 14-point differential. So they're actually sitting pretty well here, but they're like the team nobody wants to bet whatsoever at all in any sort of regard. Like nobody wants any piece of them. Pacers haven't played. They play Heat tomorrow. Heat would effectively be done. Like they're already on the edge here of the bubble with having the loss of the Pistons, even if in overtime, so there's no point differential. What is kind of your thought on if we look at Bucks, Pacers, Pistons, Heat, Raptors out of that Group B? Where do you think the value is?
Is it insane to say the Pistons? I mean,
yeah,
like I've already seen them have like a death challenge with the Bucks, where they honestly should have won that game, and they kind of squandered it in the third quarter, where the Bucks had that big offensive quarter after being down double digits, for what felt like an eternity, and then the Pistons still managed to go into overtime, but they don't seal the deal there. They're going to play in game 4, which is going to be interesting because that actually could determine like first place in this group, maybe, depending on how things go. We'll see ultimately. I think Detroit is the team that I probably want the most. Like, I'm not terribly interested in Milwaukee anything right now, just given that the way that they play, all the holes we were concerned about in the preseason, we've seen it manifest, and their resume is just unspectacular right now. Besides, Giannis individually has been great, and then Dame has shown some very good flashes offensively, but the defense is still very worrisome. And yes, on paper, they should be a better team than the Pistons, and they are, but it doesn't make them a better bet necessarily, considering that they already had that overtime game that was very close. With Miami, they blew one against Detroit, and by they, it's kind of like, I mean, Eric Spoelstra doing the Chris Webber in front of Jalen Rose is crazy. Jalen Rose, that was ridiculous. That said, like, whoever wins that game between them and Indiana, which I think we'd all probably lean Indiana, like that is probably going to be an interesting one too. And Toronto, I'm not interested in it at all because they're the worst team in this group. So to me, it's like it's kind of Pistons or nothing with this group. Maybe you could talk me into Pacers, maybe. But it's Detroit is probably the team that I want the most.
It's just interesting because, okay, if Pacers lose to Heat tomorrow, and you'll hear more about the Pistons game in a little bit, now all of a sudden it's Pistons are 2-0, and they just got to get one versus Pacers Bucks. If they steal one, they're probably in wild card. So that's kind of interesting. The other group I want to talk about is Group C in the West. Nikola Jokic was downgraded to questionable on Thursday with a personal matter. I'm not at liberty to talk about what that is. I can't tell you, like, here's the insider scoop on I can't tell you that. I don't know. But I will tell you that there's a very good, it is not like, he's definitely going to play. They just put him on there. Like, he could definitely miss this game. He could absolutely play, but he could definitely miss this game. And if he misses it, there is just like there is no floor for the Nuggets without Nikola Jokic. And like that's due because I do think that they were actually okay 2 years ago when they had Bruce Brown and KCP and Jamal Murray looked a little bit better, but there would be without Aaron Gordon and Jokic. So you're looking at a starting lineup there of Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Michael Porter Jr., and Zeke Najee? DeAndre Jordan?
Remember when Russell Westbrook was a center?
Yeah. So, I mean, it gets bleak very quickly, and it's kind of funny because the Pelicans don't have a center either. So it'd just be like Eve Messi going to town.
Mr. Double-Double.
In that game. So the Nuggets, or at least it's possible that they start off with a pretty devastating loss for their cup hopes with the Pelicans. It's not like they could beat the Pelicans even without Jokic. Like that's how bad. Like I want to be clear here. Not touching that game with 10-foot pole. But like the Warriors get the win, that nail biter win over the Mavericks. Okay, so Mavericks have got one loss. Memphis is without Ja, but Desmond Bane gets upgraded to questionable tomorrow versus the Golden State Warriors. So that's kind of interesting. And then the Pelicans are 20-1. Their heads have fell off. So Brian, of those teams, Warriors, Nuggets, Mavericks, Grizzlies, where's the value there?
Okay, Dallas has already lost one.
Yep.
But it was a very close game. So like the point differential could be made up. But you're in a hole. It's not a situation where like in the Olympics where the majority of teams from the group could advance, or in the World Cup. It's not the case here. It's not half. It's not even half. So it's probably Memphis because, I mean, if it's not Golden State already has one. Golden State's been playing really well this season. Like it's probably actually Golden State, but I don't know how much value there's going to be now given that they already have a win. And Memphis, if they're starting to get a little healthier, You have this first game against Golden State. It's not super unwinnable. Like, that's a game that could at least be close. Like, Memphis has a shot in that, especially if they're getting back Desmond Bane, and you're going to have Desmond Bane with Jaren Jackson Jr. I think I saw Vince Williams Jr. is also questionable now, and he's not going to be like a totally big factor, but he proved that he can be in a rotation last year with a pretty solid season. The Pelicans are like completely depleted. And the worrisome thing about Denver, as you outline, is if Nikola Jokic is, and we're calling it legitimately questionable, not like NBA 2024 questionable, legitimately questionable, then they could be playing with fire even in that first game against the Pelicans. Yeah. And from there, if the way you could look at it, is if Nikola Jokic is just out for this first game, you could kind of cross off the Pelicans and Denver, because Denver may lose that game. And you're looking at the Pelicans, if they do win that game. If they win that game, you're not going to take them seriously anyway. And if they lose it, it's like they're the Pelicans. They're injured right now. If the Pelicans were healthy, this would be a lot more compelling. But to me, I probably only want Memphis, because after that Golden State game, you have Denver, you have New Orleans, and then you're in Dallas. Dallas is the other team that I would look at, but because they have the loss, you got to be very careful there, although they should be able to beat the Pelicans and maybe even beat Denver in Denver after that.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think Warriors are plus 120. There's probably still value there, because if Memphis is likely going to lose tomorrow night without Ja and they're all banged up, then Golden State goes up 2.
Yeah.
Adds to point differential with another plus win. The Nuggets, here's another schedule quirk for you. The Nuggets go from New Orleans, probably stay the night, and then go to Memphis, and then stay in Memphis for 3 days. Beale Street flu on Tuesday seems like it might be in the cards. So we'll see what happens. Let's look at the NBA Cup as we head into tomorrow's games. Let's do best bets for Friday's games. We'll go around the horn and do them. Bryan Fonseca, what are your best bets for Friday?
Cam Johnson, over 2.5 threes. That's plus 100 out there right now. And I also like, this one's playing with fire, Joel Embiid under PRA 37.5 against the Magic.
That's a ballsy pick.
Yeah.
Jay Money, what's your best bet for Friday?
I'll take the Detroit Pistons on the money line, minus 120.
Like it.
Or minus 1, whichever.
Like it. I like it. I like Rockets Clippers over in that one tomorrow. There is, I believe, a 214.5 still in the market. As I'm checking the Action Network website right now, which has up to the second odds for you. Yep, 214.5. We are still there on this one. Summer look ahead line on that was 224.5. So a little bit of an overcorrection there. That's my big play on this, is just this is an overcorrection from the summer line of 224.5. They just played, that game went over. The data is really mixed for if you have these situations where you just played and then you play again. And it's kind of like the revenge spot that Jay talks about. There's no real trend on the over under there, but the Clippers got really good offense for long stretches of that game, and the Rockets got really good stretches for offense of that game. Neither of these teams are really well built strategically to beat one another. Their defenses are good, but this is basically presuming that this is going to be like a rock fight. That this is going to be like Magic versus, I'm trying to think, last year's Cavs, right? And that's not really, the Rockets do push a little bit of pace here, and the Clippers still have a little bit of firepower. So I like the over 214.5 in Rockets versus Clippers. I am with Jay on this, on his pick, because, and so just like, this is tough because you always want to say, you don't want to give out dead numbers when you're doing content, right? But I also don't think it's fair to not share. Like, Jay and I both grabbed this when it was open at 2.5, which it was Detroit plus 2.5, which was a ridiculously stupid number. I have no concept of who genuinely was like, yeah, no, the Pistons should be 2.5 point dogs to the Raptors without Scotty Barnes. But that's what opened. So Jay, what's your cap on Pistons versus Raptors?
Well, we can't shit on the Raptors too much. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the league at covering the spread. Now, this game they're not getting the double digits where they can keep the game close or stay scrappy. They actually have to win this game. I do agree that the line was a little bit off. Obviously Fontecchio and Ivy did sit out the last game. Like both of them have a toe injury. I know people that's close to the team that says that Ivy's his toe has been bothering him for a while, but I do expect that they possibly sat that game out versus the Bucks, which they still almost won. I think they wanted to get ready for this one. The main thing that I want to take away, and this kind of goes back to your first question, Matt, of how I capped the NBA Cup. I do think that some of it is that the younger teams, the guys that have these young guys and don't get paid as much money, that money means a whole lot more to them. They're not winning the NBA championship. The Pistons, they'll be happy to make the play-in turn. I hope they do make the play-in turn, but they're not winning the championship. So this is their championship right here. And that's also reasons why teams like the Celtics don't really care. They're coming off a championship. They have championship aspirations as well this year. So I think it's mainly built for teams like the Pacers, they don't really have that can they're teetering, but young exciting team. So the Pistons, I feel like this is the type of team that wants to win the NBA Cup and take it serious. I'm sure the Raptors are going to win as well. I always let people know both sides of it. The Pistons are coming off back-to-back overtime games, so could possibly worry about them a little bit gassed here, but they are coming off a day off. Obviously, Ivy didn't play. He's a huge part as well. And I just think this is a young team. It's not like they have a bunch of old guys. This is a young team. I think they'll be able to recover. I just think that the Raptors being favored here, even +1 underdogs, I think it's a little bit disrespectful to the Pistons. I don't think people have come around to see this team is a lot better. I know that they had one of the worst records in the league last year. This team is a lot better. They have a new coach. They have a new style of play. They have Cade Cunningham playing. It's just like LaMelo Ball with the Hornets. As long as they have Cade playing, they're going to have a chance to win on a night-to-night basis. This guy's a superstar caliber player, a triple-double type of do-it-all type of guy out there. So I do expect Fontecchio and Ivy to be back in this game. If they're out, I won't like it as much. I'll tell you that. But I already have Pistons on the money line in my pocket. So I need the Pistons to win this game. And then, like you guys said, they already won versus the Heat. They should be feeling good about themselves. They have a really good chance to possibly come out of this group here. But this is an absolute must-win game. And so I will take them to win the game. I like the Pistons in this particular spot. Raptors also not in the best of spots coming back home off of a 5-game road trip. They did have 2 days of rest, but it still can, going from west to east and things like that, it can be a little bit different on your body and take you a little bit more time to get adjusted. So I do think the Pistons have a full squad here, and I like them in this spot. I'll take the Pistons on the money line here.
Fontecchio's doubtful.
Okay.
Ivy's questionable. So I would say probably Ivy gives it a go, and then Fontecchio's probably out. That's what I would bet.
Definitely need Ivy more than Fontecchio for sure.
Yep. The Raptors, as Jay mentioned, they're 8-4 against the spread this season. They're 4-1 against the spread at home. But here's the lines that they covered at home. They covered versus the Kings +9.5 when they won outright after the Kings had beaten Miami. So it was a huge letdown spot. They covered versus the Lakers as 9-point dogs at home. They covered versus the Nuggets when the Nuggets were still unable to shoot. That was their third game. First road game of the year for the Nuggets. They were 8.5-point dogs. The Raptors were in that game. Then they covered versus the Sixers because everyone thought the Sixers were still going to be pretty good. They were not. They won that one outright as 5-point home dogs. So they have won outright twice at home as dogs, but they're versus teams that were in either way out of line with where the market should have been because it was too early, or the Kings were just in a nightmare spot. So I'm not really scared here. I make this 3.5 Pistons. I made this Pistons -3.5, and that to me, if this was Pistons -2.5, I would probably be yeah, I don't really want any part. It's close enough. It's fine. The Pistons cannot be underdogs in this game. They are better than the Raptors, like Jay said. Absolutely 100%. Brian, let's talk about Cam Johnson because, man, he's having himself a hell of a season. Talk to me about why you want him tonight on the 3-point prop.
Well, what teams have been doing against the Knicks is pretty simple. Just high pick and roll, get the switch on Karl-Anthony Towns, move the ball over, and you have a shooter standing in the corner right there. The Bulls went right to it right away. Zach LaVine, high pick and roll, you get the switch, tosses it to Nikola Vucevic. Karl-Anthony Towns has to make a decision. OG Anunoby comes to help, and there's a Pat Williams 3. And Pat Williams, with all due respect, not Cam Johnson the way Cam Johnson's been playing this year. Cam Johnson has gotten 3 or more threes in 5 of 6. He did it in 5 straight before last game. He was only 1 of 5 against the Celtics. But they're going to have the opportunities to do this, especially because Dennis Schroeder and Cam Thompson are going to be problematic for this Knicks defense that has been struggling this year, particularly in the high pick and roll situations where they've looked lost, honestly, at times. And teams are just attacking Karl-Anthony Towns. Like, Karl-Anthony Towns has been awesome, all-star level offensively. Defensively, it's a problem. And defensively, he's not the only person to blame, but he's the guy that other guards like Trae Young has done this and other guards have gone at, when they play against this team. And when they play against the Knicks, it's beneficial to have a shooter in the corner. Cam Johnson is going to do that, and he can knock down shots. And he's been doing it at a high clip this year. He's actually having a really good sort of resurgence season after, he kind of tailed off a little bit last year. But he's back to averaging close to 17 points a game. He's shooting 38% from 3 about, if you round a little bit. And more importantly, the volume's going up. He's averaging 8 3-point attempts per game, basically. And most of his shot diet has come from 3. He's just shooting like about 4.5 twos per game at this point. But he's going to have the opportunities because of the way that Dennis Schroeder and Cam Thomas can really penetrate the defense. And with their speed, they can create a lot of open looks for shooters. So I would say Dorian Finney-Smith too, but I'm not sure he's even going to play in this game. But Dorian Finney-Smith is somebody who could feed off. Like, Brooklyn is going to be able to get out and knock down some open shots. They're going to try to create a lot of them. And they're putting up 3-point attempts at a pretty significant rate. So I would say Cam Johnson has a good shot to do this. And it was plus money. So I was like, why not take a shot at it?
And it was plus money. So, let's go ahead.
Yeah, why not?
Let's go ahead and juice it. The Knicks are averaging the 5th most 3-point attempts per 100 possessions for the opponent. It's okay. The Knicks, when I try and look at them from like a stats profile, right? Like, I'm trying to understand, like, who is this team? None of it makes sense. Like, none of it makes sense. It's kind of all over the place, and it varies so wildly game to game. Like, some nights they're absolutely locked down in very tough environments.
Mm-hmm.
And then some nights the Chicago Bulls are dropping 139 on them. Like, it's all over the place. And it's not just Towns. I think that's a big part of it, but like, it's not just Towns. It's Mikal Bridges. Like, I've seen some grumbling from Knicks fans about Bridges.
He hasn't been awesome.
And that's probably, he's going to be a guy that's probably going to see Cam a lot. And if they're over helping, because they're, one thing that tends to happen, I did notice this today a little bit doing some of the clips on them. When you have a defender that you don't trust on your team, even if they're doing a good job, it's not about how they're doing, right? This is always the problem with the Celtics when Isaiah Thomas was there. Isaiah Thomas would get the switch, and Isaiah would be doing fine. Like, he'd be bodying the dude, battling him, like bothering the dribble. Isaiah was fine. But Marcus Smart on the other side was always like looking. Always.
I remember that.
Always was like, you good, little guy? You good?
You just brought back a memory.
You good? And would always go help over because you don't think that he can handle it. And then the guy that Isaiah's defending whips the Smarts guy for 3. And then Smart's like, oh, man. And it's like, just stay home. Trust your teammate. And Towns, I think, is having a little bit of that, where his teammates are definitely, like, in some situations, either on switches or in drop coverage. The other guys are definitely, like, a little more aggressive with trying to help out Cat right now. And so I think that's part of the equation here too. So I like the Cam Johnson cap on this. Nets are going to have a pretty clear shot profile, and that's going to involve a lot of threes in this game. All right, let's give me why you're tempted by this Embiid prop. With he looked like garbage in game 1.
Yeah,
I think it's an interesting. This is like an interesting handicapping question: is do you think a guy can fundamentally look dramatically different in 2 days?
Yeah, that's the see. I just feel like this number's too high. It's 37.5. I'm not saying like if Joel Embiid is going to have this transformation and all of a sudden we see old Joel Embiid against a top 2 defense. Granted, they're missing Paolo Banchero and Wendell Carter Jr. But okay, fine. But Joel Embiid, like he looked like shit in that game against the Knicks.
Yeah.
Like I just can't get over that, right? Bill Simmons is talking about him looking like the Suns version of Shaq. You know, which I thought was funny. Like
the big cactus was what you
yeah,
referred to in that
no,
time?
that was the I think that was that the Celtics one? No, that was the big Shamrock. You're right.
Big
That was the
Shamrock.
Suns.
Yeah.
Suns.
He was the big cactus, and I think he was
Phoenix.
It had to be Arizona. Where else are there cactus?
Yeah, that was the
cacti,
Suns for
Yeah,
sure.
it was the Suns because he was the big Aristotle in Miami.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about Phoenix personally, but yeah,
I have a encyclopedic knowledge of Shaq's stupid ass nicknames for himself. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, okay, so Joel Embiid's PRA in this game against the Knicks was 21, and we just talked about the Knicks rather defensive struggles. He was 2 for 11 in that game. I don't know if he's going to do that again necessarily, but to go from 21 to suddenly getting 38 in this game against Orlando, where that's just a lot for me. I saw that number and I was like, wow, I expected that to be maybe in the low 30s because I feel like he's still going to be eased back. He clearly doesn't, he doesn't look like he's in, I guess, typical peak Joel Embiid shape, if we want to call it that. Still working his way back into it. I feel like they're going to play through him to a point, but I think a lot of it is going to be playmaking, like we saw in that game against the Knicks, where he did have 5 assists. He only had a couple turnovers, but I still think they're going to slow walk this a little bit. 37.5 is just too high, especially against an Orlando Magic team that is very defensively disciplined. Like they stick to their principles, and I think they recognize, like, hey, we're weak down low because, we're shorthanded, but Mo Wagner's not going to give a shit when he goes in there and has minutes and is guarding Joel Embiid. Like, that dude is tough as hell. So 37.5 is just a high number for me. So I was like, man, I'm going to take the shot at going under. And if I lose, I lose. Whatever. Like, it's gambling. Shit happens. But to me, 37.5 is just too high right now, especially because I don't think he's going to rebound like a ton. Not yet, at least.
Jay, give me your thoughts on this game.
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't looked too deep into the game. I would like to lean Sixers. They have owned the Magic. I think this could be like, I don't really like the fact that they're without Wendell Carter Jr. here. Like Goga Batadze, like, I mean, I can't. That is a high PRA, and it makes perfect basketball sense. It's going to take him 3 to 4, maybe 5 games to really get in rhythm. But I know that Batadze can't do, like, Embiid will see him and literally see food, like literally. So whether it's him or Franz Wagner on him, Embiid will literally like, oh, okay, this is my get right game right here. So the Magic, it's one of those things where like they have really great perimeter defenders. Like when the whole team plays great defense, but I can say he has a little bit of an advantage here. I do lean towards Philly, but I don't want to go against the Magic. They went 0-5 straight up and against the spread on that 5-game road trip. I could see them going 5-0 straight up and against the spread here at the house. This is just where the Magic ball out. I don't feel super comfortable fading the Magic at the house. I think they play a lot better, feed off their home crowd at the house. So I'm torn on this game, but I mean, the line kind of is telling us, I know it's like giving respect to Philly, but if Paul George and Embiid are in here, like they'll have a chance to win this game. It's just about, do they really care about the NBA Cup? Because the Magic are a younger team and they need that money a lot more than Paul George and Embiid and Max. I could tell you that right now. But if I had to bet it right now, I'd be taking Philly plus money here, or plus the 1.5.
So when I looked at projections, I immediately was like, oh, I'm going to bet the Magic in this game. Like I was like, all right, this is not like, this spread should not be this. And then I was immediately like, you don't have an accurate power rating on the Sixers because you haven't seen Paul George, Joel Embiid for more than that one spot versus a very good team. Like it's just not, that's not the spot. So you don't really have enough to really be able to bet it. The current line on this game, by the way, is Sixers +1, Magic -1. The home team has won in like the last 25 Orlando Magic games. Like it's
makes sense.
It's been insane.
Makes sense.
Like they lose on the road, they win at home, like every time.
That was the entire playoff series against the Cavs. I think the home team won.
The other thing here, and this kind of helps, or this is a warning point for you, Brian. So you're the cap being on Joel Embiid's health, I think is a good one. It's solid. A weird stat I found. So dunks and threes has possession length, not just for like we have all these numbers on like pace, which is how many possessions, and it's all estimated, like based off of the data that we have, how many times did each team have the ball. What dunks and threes has is actually like how many possessions did you have, but not only that, how many seconds is your average possession on both offense and defense. And this is a weird one. The Magic have the third shortest defensive possession length in the league. And the reason is because they put so much pressure on you up top that they force a lot of early shot clock turnovers. Like, they turn you over up there. But it also does mean if they miss, teams are scoring the other way. Like, the Magic play with a little bit of pace here. Another stat for you, Brian. Last season, under Nick Nurse, when Joel Embiid plays, that actually includes the other night, when Joel Embiid plays under Nick Nurse, the over is 30-17 at 64%. So more scoring, more production, more assists, etc. That said, I think keeping the cap simple, like just keep it simple, stupid. Joel looked like shit 2 days earlier. He is not magically better. Like, he's just not magically fixed now.
Let me ask you this. Would you bet his over? 37.5 PRA.
No. That's kind of what was his line last game, Brian? What was the line for that? Do you know?
I do not think it was 37.5. I got to go back and check. Matt, I'm not sure.
Because he only played 26 minutes. I wanted to say one thing, that the Sixers, obviously they don't have Maxey right now. You could argue they're somewhat of the same team. I mean, they added Paul George. We know how the Magic balled out last year. They lost all 3 matchups versus the Philadelphia 76ers, including one where they had Ben Carroll and no Embiid. And it was just Maxey. They started Maxey, Milton, Oubre, Harris, and Reed. And they still beat them by 20 points. So for whatever reason, I don't know what it is. These guys are 9-1 last 10 versus Orlando. They just kind of seem to own this team. I know the Magic will see that and want to play a lot better here, but without Ben Carroll and Wendell Carter Jr. down low, I don't like this spot for the Magic, honestly. I think the Sixers might be able to get back on track here.
Looks like it was 29.
So they bumped that up for a reason. Like, the books aren't stupid. Either they expect him to play a few more. I'm not saying that it's a bad bet, Brian, but we're just comparing the lines. They must know that he's going to play a few more minutes or something like that, or maybe closer to 30.
It was even lower, actually. It was. I'm looking at over at one site that I used, and it looks like it was below 27. It was 20. It was around 25
for PRA, right?
And he went under that too.
That's crazy.
All right, that's points. Let me look at PRA.
Yeah, I'm going to say that doesn't sound right. Yeah, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's got to be close.
Okay. All right.
It's going to be in the 30s.
Yeah, it was in the 30s. All right. I do have a question for you here, Brian. One more for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What if you take the under and Sixers money line?
I mean, listen, they could win without him going over against the Orlando Magic, who don't have Paolo Banchero and Wendell Carter Jr. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to bet that, but I would probably lean Philly, I guess, in this spot. I do worry about, so Jay brings up an interesting point about Orlando being home after their road trip. And Orlando is has been much better at home for whatever reason. And Matt, you outlined the stat. What was 25? Their last 25 games consecutively, the home team has won. Like, this is a ridiculous number. And that goes back to last season where they had an entire playoff series where nobody won a road game with the Cavs.
Yeah. It's wild. It's the numbers are on that. I was on BetStream for Pacers Magic, and it was crazy.
It's the money line is a stay away from me in this game just because of those two stats, like the variables of it.
That's crazy for sure.
Like, I'd want to know what Joel Embiid I'm getting. Like, for me right now, it's like it's been 2 days since we saw that. Now all of a sudden he's gonna go, I don't know, 10 for 14 and get a million free throws and make them all. Like, I don't know, maybe. Because he is a transcendent talent. He is like one of the best players in the league when he's fully healthy. But all word that we've gotten is that he's not fully healthy. And that's what we've seen, frankly, since, even in the summer, he didn't look fully healthy at times.
Be interesting to see if the Magic choose to double him as well. I'll tell you one thing, Bataze, he I don't know about that. They might want to double with Wagner and make him pass the ball, but 1-on-1 versus Bataze, he can fuck around and go for 30 points in 30 minutes.
That's food.
Mo Wagner might fight him. Like,
yeah, Mo Wagner invite. Mo Wagner's. It's gonna be really funny when everyone thinks that Joel flopped, but actually Mo Wagner just actually literally punched him. Like that's might happen. Look, I'm not advising it, but I do think that this is an interesting counter-directional parlay, like an inverse correlation parlay.
Mm-hmm.
Under 36.5 for Embiid and Sixers money line is plus 360. Pretty good return.
Okay. Good talk you
All right.
off.
That's got to do it for buckets. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. Cam Johnson over 2.5 threes. Joel Embiid under 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Detroit Pistons on the money line. Rockets Clippers over 214.5. Those are your best bets for Thursday or for Friday in the association. My thanks to David Payne, who's not feeling well, for hanging out with us and doing the production side. Shouts to David. My thanks to Bridie and the video crew over at youtube.com/The Action Network. We'll see you guys again on Monday with the Future Jays. We'll get you some more cup talk as well as look at whatever awards come up in their little weirdo minds. Have yourselves a great weekend. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, let's get buckets.